Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. As you can tell from the thumbnail, we're going to be talking balance changes. Of course, these are not official balance changes. These are nothing more than a wish list that I came up with outside of the minor and the heel, which we already kind of know about. Which I guess on those topics, we'll just go knock that out of the way real quick. I think the minor, I'm indifferent on it, to be honest with you, but I think it's probably going to get an HP nerf. That's just my strong gut assumption there. As far as the heel is concerned, delete, reworked, whatever you want to call it. I think I forgot whose video it was. Phonecats maybe posted something about the devs got in there and tore apart the APK and all that kind of stuff, and it came to find out that there was something in there that was called heel spirit or something like that. So maybe that's what it kind of transforms into, or they turn it into. But personally, I almost feel like it should just be removed all across the board, especially with Battle Healer in the game. So those are my thoughts on those two cards. But I do have some notes here, so I'm going to go and bring them up just to make sure that I hit everything and I don't miss any points. So that's important for me, obviously. So I'm going to get to the top here, but I also want to, before we get started, I want to make sure that everyone understands. When I was kind of coming up with this list, I was working on it today, that I'm certainly not trying to kill cards or anything like that, but with the amount of cards that we do have in the game, and this is why obviously one of the reasons Supercell does it, but just to make some of these subtle changes, right? Maybe some are a little bit more bold than others, but to where we can shake things up enough to where we're trying new decks and variations and card combinations, all of these different things, right? I mean, I feel like with all the cards in the game, again, we can do a lot better than 2.9, right? That's a dirty example, but you get the point. So anyways, so before we get started to the nerfs and then the buffs, I would like to talk about what I call the category of don't touch, right? I do not want this card touch. I'm going to be in the minority. I'm almost 100% guaranteed. But that's the Magic Archer. And let me explain why I don't think it should be nerfed by any means. I do think it is a strong card, but with that, it's a very high-skilled cap card. So of the 100% of people, right, that use the Magic Archer, I would say maybe 10%, maybe 15%, but I don't think so. I'd say 10% of the people actually know how to use him effectively, whether it's the geometry, whether it's sniping, whether it's opposite lane, still taking care of the right, pushing left, for a counter push, protecting him. The list goes on. I mean, there's a bait aspect, I guess, but still, the whole goal of the Magic Archer is not to sacrifice him. I'm not saying that he won't be, but at the same time, it's important to keep him alive. And it's a high-skilled card. So I think that when Supercell thinks about not just Magic Archer, but any card for that matter, just thinking, it probably deck variations to a degree too. Like 2.9, as much as the people who don't play it hate it. It's a high skill deck for sure. There's no doubt, but I just think that when balancing cards, they need to really nerfing, I guess. They really need to think about the skill cap involved there. And again, it's going to be the minority of the cards, but Magic Archer definitely falls in that category. So I am a no nerf, do not touch that card. And I know I'm going to get some negative feedback for that one, but that's just my personal opinion. I just think it's a high skill cap card, and a lot of people don't even use them correctly to begin with. So, all right, so let's move on and get to the actual nerfs. I have 3 on my list, and the first one is going to be the Golem. Some of this might be a little redundant, as I'm sure that a lot of you have probably heard this already, but the death damage, everything else about the Golem I'm fine with. I mean, it's 8 elixir, it's expensive, it's got to be tanky, and it's all that stuff is great, but the death damage is ridiculous. I'm sorry, that needs to be nerfed. And I'd go out on a limb to say it needs to be higher than 5%, 10%. I don't know what that percentage is, but it needs to be a pretty I'm reluctant to say dramatic or anything. I don't want execution or kind of reworks or anything like that, but it really needs to do maybe half the damage. I don't know, but because between that and the Golemites, I mean, you're talking 500-600 damage to your tower, and that's just ridiculous. All you got to do is just, cross your fingers that you get it to the tower, and then if they have lightning, I mean, it just gets real ugly real quick. So that is my first nerf. The next one is one everyone outside of the people who use it asked for, and that is the Expo. The only thing I want to see, because it's so used defensively in so many, I'm not saying, let me take that back. Obviously, very high skill people, they can lock onto your tower. they'll do their thing with it. But in a lot of battles, it's just used defensively, and it just lasts too long. Just kill the duration a little bit. I think you need to nerf the duration from 40 seconds to 30 seconds. And, I think that's perfectly fine. I still think 2.9 players. Let's when we talk Expo, let's face it, we're talking about three decks. Okay, it's never just Expo. It's 2.9, it's Expo, and it's the Elixir Collector version. At least those are the three that I know about that are very popular. More or less the first two. I don't really see the Elixir Collector variation much. But anyways, of those people that use it, all those high skill players that use it, I'm not saying that a 10-second duration, decrease wouldn't affect it, but at the same time, if they're high-skilled players, which are using this high-skilled cap deck, they should be able to still make it work. And you know what? They're going to actually have to work for it harder now, instead of just being able to say, oh, I got 1 HP higher than you, and because of the new tiebreaker rules, I'm just going to either spell cycle you, or I'm just going to defend and stack, in double OT. And it's just not good for the game. I mean, that's enough to say we have to make some changes there. And if they nerf the Expo with that duration and I lose to that, you know what? I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to be a lot better off than I am now when I sit there and just see it just last for 40 seconds. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. That's what they need to do with the Expo, and I don't think it's going to do any harm across the board. So, now the other one is going to be, this is my last one on my nerf list actually, and it's tricky, is the wall breakers. I think that the fact that you can almost all the time get a positive elixir trade by splitting them at the bridge, obviously if you're the same King Tower level, or not King Tower level, but the wall breakers are the same as the King Tower, you're going to hit the one side, one or the other, right? Or they're going to have to defend with more elixir than the wall breakers. So that is that kind of makes them kind of very annoying card, I guess, to play against, and also not just that, but the damage that they actually do. So for 2 elixir, that's a lot. I feel like they are a little OP there. So I'm just not sure what the right thing to do there is. They were 3 elixir before, they moved them to elixir. Supercell is very reluctant to change elixir, often. So I don't think they'll go back to the 3, but maybe it's just a damage decrease. I think that they probably do just a little bit too much damage. But at the same time, it's not always the easiest, unless you're out cycling, quick cycling, things like that, to get them to the tower. You can defend against them. I just think there needs to be a little something there for it. And I think the community is asking for it too, because they're super annoying to play against. But either way, if I face wall breakers, I typically know what kind of deck I'm facing. It's going to be a quick cycle. It's going to have minor in it. Some small spells, things like that. So I'm not overly concerned when I do play those decks. But anyways, so moving on to the buffs. My first one is going to be the bowler. And first thing it needs to be able to do is knock back Prince. It's ridiculous. People have said that it can't knock back Prince. I think it's hilarious that it can't. That big old bowler can't knock him back. So that's the first thing. And the other thing I'd like to see is to make him, more appealing to use is probably increase his throw speed. I think that would help. I don't know if it's a damage thing, his HP. I think all that. I think he's right at 5 elixir. I think he's good. I just think he needs to be able to maybe throw a little bit faster. The only interaction it's hard to kind of think about is as an enemy troop, a Valkyrie, or who, I don't know, any ground troop tries to attack him, how that would affect it, right? They have to be a little careful with it, because if they do it too much, then he never gets touched. So we don't want that as well. So I just think that maybe, definitely the fact that you can push back the Prince, but also possibly, a speed increase. I just don't think it's a health thing or anything like that. So just something to make him more appealing to use. So the next one is going to be the Goblin Giant. For 6 elixir, right, you're getting basically 2 spear goblins on a giant, right? I guess for that extra elixir there. I just don't think he's that much of a viable card. I only say that because it's when we talk about these battle changes, it's not so much the card itself, but it's what else can I be using instead of that card. And I'd rather just use a giant for 5 elixir. I really would, especially in a giant Sparky deck, things like that. I know that the Goblin Giant and Sparky was very much meta at one point, viable or whatever. I haven't seen it much, but again, I just think he needs some kind of a buff. Maybe it's an HP buff, again, for 6 elixir, or if they can throw a third Spirit Goblin in there. That would make it appealing, I think. So I think he needs some love for sure at 6 Lugger. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and keep using the Giant, to be honest with you. So the other one is going to be the Fisherman. This is actually my last buff, but it's going to be the Fisherman. And I think that I love that they gave him the range back. And then when they also made his pull speed slower, I think a lot of people actually thought that that was another buff because it was kind of annoying when he pulled people, or troops I should say, too fast, because then it was just really hard to kind of manage, and he was doing things you didn't want to do. You can't think three troops out, you know, kind of a deal. But at the same time, as I continued to use him after the buff, you know, he just seemed a little slow. Like when I'm trying to pull the Hog Rider and you're really trying to time that to where he's not going to, you got to drop him obviously left lane. He has the pull range for it. But if you're too quick with it, he will miss that, right? That interaction's not there. So you have to time it very quick, or he'll walk off to the left, you know, or whichever side, you know, opposite the Hog Rider. So he needs to be able to, you got to be, my point is, I guess, if the Hog Rider's getting real close to your tower, he's going to get a hit. But you should be able to drop him, and he should basically wind up and pull pretty quick. You don't want to be able to jeopardize 2 hits there. So I think increasing that just a little bit. Again, he's a legendary card, right? I think the pull mechanic is cool. I think that it was good to get him back into the range that he is, but I think he need to, I kind of want that back, where I was okay with it before, but I think I want that speed, the pull speed back. So but yeah, those are my cards, and I guess I'll just end with this. You know, I'm happy that they continually do these balance updates and try to listen to the community. And at the end of the day, it's shaking up the meta, right? And that's what we want to do. So, but I also want to say, you know, too, that, you know, like for the miner as an example, just using the miner as an example, right? They're making, you know, changes to that card, you know, hopefully small, but it's enough for players to explore different options, right? And different deck types. Because we have so many cards, again, I said this before, but we have so many cards to choose from, and we should be able to build different variations, you know, and just think of how many variations and combinations and cards and all these different things, how many we're actually missing in the game. You know, we're probably missing so many, and I think that as they continue to do these things, it will continue to positively shake things up for us as a player base to find new ways to use all the cards in the game. I mean, you know, we're creeping up on 100 cards. It's crazy. We should be able to come up with so many other smart configurations of these cards, right? So I kind of leave it with this here. You know, it's not only about balancing the meta, it's about allowing more decks and options to be meta, right? So if you think about that, it's not just what we currently have or see that, it's about bringing in other cards into the fold to make them meta as well, and through different combinations, trial and error and all that kind of stuff. I think you know, all these balance changes and all the players' feedback and stuff like that is just super important. So, but anyways, guys, that's my wish list. We'll see how it goes. And again, this is coming out before anything has been discussed or you know, leaked out or whatever. At least I haven't seen it. So there's, outside of the miner and the heal, there's no you know, rhyme or reason to any of it. So I'd be curious to know what you guys think. I think for the most part you guys would agree, I'm hoping. But you know, we'll see how it all shakes out. It might just be a small little update, to be honest with you. I think more than card balancing, right? We want to see more features added to the game, of course. But be curious again to know. So if you guys do happen to come across this video, I mean, definitely share your opinions. I really would be curious to know what you guys think about my thoughts on the Magic Archer and sort of the skill cap level of each card, and when they're considering cards that are OP, that appear to be OP, but how hard and difficult they are actually to use. And you know, that being said, I do think it needs to be, you know, it's not just a pro level thought, right, or feedback. You know, it has to be the majority, you know, to a degree, right? But I think that we need to always make sure that we're looking at more than just the you know, the pros, right? And I'm not saying that that's what is exactly happening, but again, it's very important that we kind of just take more than just them and just in total. And if that's the case, then certainly the Magic Archer is not being used to his full potential most of the time. So anyways, I'll leave you guys with that. I'd be curious to know if you guys want to just go ahead and comment below, just kind of get your take on, and maybe what cards I missed as far as nerfs or buffs, or the do not touch category. So hope you guys have a good one, and I'll be uploading ladder play tomorrow night for sure. But yeah, until then, have a good night. Peace out.